Hey, this is Josh from Grappazilla, and today we're going to talk about adding Par Terre, which is the groundwork of wrestling, in order to improve your MMA and your BJJ. In no way is this an attack on BJJ. It's not an attack on any of the submission arts. What I'm talking about is, I think a lot of people notice that a lot of the jiu-jitsu community has added wrestling into the repertoire, as well as MMA fighters, but a lot of them do only the takedown portion of it and not the actual par terre, which is very important to have in order to get your takedowns much better and your scrambling, etc. These are the reasons why. Now, before I go, you see me doing tics like that, or you notice this big tumor, it's nothing. The tics are Tourette syndrome, that's it. Okay, so let's start. There have been many MMA champions in the past decade coming from the sport of wrestling. We all notice that. And being very dominant, very hard to submit, and just even for the top submission experts, they're having a hard time, especially when it gets to MMA. And yes, these wrestlers have a lot of BJJ training, but there's some aspect of the wrestling par terre when that's mixed with their takedown that shouldn't be ignored in the end of the day, because in the end of the day, the use of that is winning fights. Okay, so let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Let's talk about the control and the pin. Okay, wrestling's main goal on the ground is to control or pin the opponent. There are no exceptions, there are actually exceptions such as in folk style, where there's an emphasis on riding and escaping from the bottom, which has an extreme value to an MMA athlete, by the way. Okay, there's a direct benefit as it develops an aggressive presence on the ground and in the scramble position on the ground. Being able to pin and hold a resisting athletic opponent is great for any ground and pound MMA fighter. It also teaches proper weight distribution and balance. Wrestlers are known for feeling heavy on the ground, and that's the reason why, one of them. Now next, the takedown's effect on par terre. Now, all wrestling training and matches start standing. We know this. Now, due to this, all par terre is always coming off of a type of cause and effect sequence. For example, a woman does a double leg takedown and takes a guy down to a leg lace. Okay. Due to this, the wrestler naturally learns the transition from takedown to par terre, and in that transition, they can start the scramble very fast. Okay. Now, next, this is one of the weirdest ones, but because wrestling doesn't have any submissions, it can develop other attributes than those who practice just the ground of jiu-jitsu or catch and the takedowns of wrestling without the par terre. Okay? Now, wrestling's biggest weakness perhaps may also be one of its biggest strengths, okay, when it comes to the developing an athlete who can fully commit and scramble on any move. There are very rare cases of an athlete stalling and squeezing, as we see in BJJ time and time again, okay? Now, athletes learn to use complete body positioning, head placement, and wrestling scrambling tactics in order to give their opponent the absolute hardest time when trying to control them. They can reverse into takedowns, get from under bottom position very effectively, and onto many top positions where generally they're in an excellent position for striking and impressing the judges in the fight. Now, we've seen this time and time again with a lot of fighters like Khabib, Usman, Askren, Cejudo, Sonnen, Romero, Makhachev, Hughes, Trigg, Phil Davis, Coleman, Kerr, Velasquez, Couture, and I can go on and on, All these fighters have a strong wrestling background and have certainly used the tools developed from their par terre in order to dominate the scramble and control on the ground. Yes, all of these fighters, most have had BJJ, Sambo, or some type of catch wrestling added on the ground, but we got to remember that their base was wrestling, and it must not be ignored. Okay? Next, top position dominance. Wrestlers get on top, period. It's what they've trained for, as wrestling does not teach how to fight off the back, as you can see in other grappling arts. Now, this produces an athlete that can get to a dominant position on the ground when it goes to the ground, because their main focus is to get top position. All their training, all their movement is to get to that top position or get from out under, okay? Now, If you add in some BJJ, sambo, or any of the other submission-based grappling arts into the wrestler's repertoire, you will have a deadly mix, but one that can get effective to the top position off of the scramble, okay? Now next, good old folk-style American wrestling. Folk-style has a difference to freestyle and Greco in that it includes rides and entices bottom position wrestlers to escape from the bottom, and they're very effective at doing so. Now, when we look how this can impact a fighter, it is to see that both riding an opponent in a position can only be positive when striking on the ground, and the fact that the wrestler is seasoned from escaping from the ground can help them dictate to take the fight standing when they choose. We have seen numerous times wrestlers stand up near the cage when they want to take their fight back to the feet. And it's very important because that helps you the ability to get from under off the ground is incredibly important for a wrestler, especially when fighting a top grappler, okay? So it's very important. Now, in conclusion, adding any type of wrestling will only benefit any fighter as the attributes and skills developed will have a clear transition to the cage, okay? Think of not how wrestling can be beaten by other arts, but how wrestling's attributes, and it's very important to the attributes, can add to the effectiveness of other grappling arts in the pursuit for ground dominance within the MMA realm. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this. If you like it, please subscribe. I also have an Instagram, a website, etc. So check it out, grapplezilla.com, and Instagram's grapplezilla. And have a great day, and we'll get some more videos out to you. Now, until then, enjoy.